welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, once again hosting a business communication expert. And when we listen to the conversation, we will get tips and strategies that will help us boost our business. Again, it's a pleasure to welcome to the Biz Communication Show Dawn Echols. Dawn is a clinically trained, licensed mental health professional who works with both individual adults and couples about problems of living. Her specialties include anxiety management and personal growth goals, as well as mental health issues. Dawn is the owner and executive director of Dawning Phoenix, a small private practice based in Gainesville, Georgia. Her practice offers in-person and online counseling options. Dawn considers it a privilege to help clients with personal growth, improved life satisfaction, and enhanced relationships. I know you're happy to welcome, as I'm doing, Dawn Echols. Hello, Dawn. Good to be with you again.
Hello, Dr. Bill. It's so nice to be back with you again as well.
Dawn, I was looking a few minutes ago at your Facebook page. And on your Facebook page, there are pictures of the beach and there are pictures of you water skiing. And it brought to mind something that I believe we need to hear from a professional counselor. And that is, you and I both know many people, I guess we'd call them type A personalities, hard driving people who almost brag about the fact, gee, I haven't taken a vacation in years, just can't do that, have too much to accomplish. What does that style of living do to someone's emotions, to their stability, and even to their productivity?
That's a great question, Dr. Bill, because one of the things people they heard, sometimes erroneously, is that type A, they know that there's an association with type A personalities and cardiac events. What's missing in those sound bites is that type A and cardiac events are associated when there's impatience and hostility, okay? And so when you ask the question about hard driving, not taking time off, one of the things it brings to mind the cliched quote that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So if people are passionately enjoying what they do, these people who enjoy and love to work and they love working, if it's a very satisfying thing that they're doing, a lot of hours is not necessarily stressful. What distinguishes those long hours and that immersement in their work is whether or not there is an impatience, whether or not the stress is experienced as distressing or hard and difficult and negative, or if it's actually joyful and engaging and absorbing, and whether or not there's that element of negativity and hostility versus joy and satisfaction. The other piece of that, though, as well, is it a balance for that person and for their life? And so a lot of times in therapy, we talk to people about the wheel of their life and the areas of their life and the different life satisfactions. And so a lot of times, a friend of mine has what she calls individualized balance awareness. IBA is the name of her theory. And she owns a counseling practice called Tranquility in Woodstock, Georgia. She's another Brunel grad friend of mine. And she talks about the personal area of your life, the kind of existential or spiritual area of your life, the work area of your life, and the more, she would have to talk about this because of course it's her theory, but then that we've got occupation, relationships, personal, social, all the different areas that we want to look at. And then she looks at why she calls that individualized balance awareness is because what is it for each person that creates balance? So if our work life and that driving time spent at work is experienced as negative and pressured and impatient and always running out of time, versus that, as Mary Kay Ash of Mary Kay Cosmetics said, if you ever want to get something done, ask a busy person, because they're usually very good with their time. So time management and balancing our time. And so when you talk about seeing things on my Facebook page, it had to do with me learning as an early type A in my life, I actually sought out cultivating a sense of how do I learn to relax, because my artistic side of my temperament actually needed a little bit of balance. I didn't need that negative perfectionistic driving piece that said, I'm always running out of time, I'm always under pressure. Some of my friends that were in music with me would say, oh yeah, Dawn was kind of always pushed a little. And they loved me, and that was fine. But that was experienced maybe sometimes for me, it was a little too much stress. And I have found ways to offload it. One of them was water skiing.
So I'm really hearing a different side than I often would expect to hear, and that is that the answer to this might lie with the individual and their relationship to their work and what they're getting out of it. I know in my own case, I don't take that many days or that many weeks off a year. And it's not out of a sense of guilt. It's just that I enjoy so much what I'm doing. And if I'm away, when I am away, when I do take that time, yes, I do turn off the switch. But I probably take fewer days off. I remember one job I left one time where I had accumulated a pretty large number of vacation days. I would go into the office and work on, say, July 4th or something if I didn't have any family or recreational items going on. And it built up a nice going away present for me. And I was satisfied with that. On the other hand, as you say, if we are in a situation where we're very uncomfortable with our boss, our demands are too high, we don't like the people we're working with, we think we're underpaid, all those things, extending that and not taking time away from it, that's rather self-destructive, I think.
Absolutely. That's when balancing your life differently and at different times and stages of our lives. You may find that for our relationships, a person who loves their work and is totally absorbed in it is going to also need to find ways to not neglect their personal relationships. And they're going to want to find a way to balance that and create quality time with like small children, for instance, because oftentimes if you're building a company, you may also have a teenager at home. Or if you're starting a career, you may have a small child at home. And so you're trying to find a balance for that. And you might love your work, but you love your children. And so you want to be able to spend not just quality 1 hour a day, but you actually want to spend 3 and 4 hour blocks with your children of relaxed time where because children have no clock. You know, small child that, you know, they can play with their toys with you on the floor for 2 hours and, you know, it's no big deal. They totally have no sense of time whatsoever. And when we're with them, we're totally in the present moment. If we can follow them, it's one of the things play therapists teach parents a lot of times is follow the child, versus directive play therapy has a very different purpose. And it's like, follow the child and let's see what they're leading you to, because they're very much in the present. They're totally engaged in what they're doing. They're very absorbed, just like we are when we're at work. One of my intern supervisors, who was a play therapist, used to say, play is a child's work. And so she would let the child get engaged in their play. We get engaged in our work. So when you were involved in those things and you didn't have something that was more pressing at the time, and you had a supportive spouse who was like, hey, I got something I'm doing, go ahead, enjoy it. You know, we'll go do this tomorrow after July 4th because our kids are going to be in town. Then you went to work because it was a good time to take care of it. You were enjoying it. She had something she was doing, and you made it work because it was flexible cooperation. And when families do that and you're absorbed, but those kind of people who love that 60 and 70 hours a week, they have to find those 10 and 20 hours or whatever that they're going to spend with that family. And then at different cycles in our life, we find that we do different things. We may change careers, we may reinvent ourselves, and then something different. But when you're in a negative environment, you've got to find a way to recharge, to find something positive. I have another extended family member who was in a very negative environment that had changed the corporate setting. Everybody was complaining. And it was extremely rare to hear her get engaged in a negative conversation. What she did is she came home and did crafts. She cooked meals for people at work. She would bring lunch. She got involved in other hobbies that were tied to things that she enjoyed. She simply would not give time and energy and attention to the negativity that everyone was doing this. She'd just sail right on through and bring cookies.
And those activities, hobbies, or whatever you want to call them, they were her catharsis, really.
Absolutely. And she stayed, and even she's actually beating a cancer diagnosis and living in remission long past when other people are actually not doing quite as well, who hadn't had near as many serious issues. It's amazing to see. And I'm not saying that's true for everyone. We're very happy that she's been able to find the mix of things for her health. But she stands out to me because it's the power of choosing just not to give something. It wasn't that her environment was any more positive. It was not, but she just chose not to feed it. And I remember watching it because so many people were, it was very negative and it was very difficult. And it was true. That was the reality of that situation. She said, I'm going to do these crafts and I'm going to do these things for people I enjoy. I'm going to make something enjoyable for our lunch break. And I don't even know if she really, honestly, Dr. Bill knew that she was consciously doing that. It was just, that's how she chose to cope.
And that was her relief from what could have been a toxic situation.
Yes.
Dawn, we've come through and we still are in a time of enforced isolation because of COVID-19. And I'm curious if you have had clients who come to you because of this business of not being able to have either professional relationships or social relationships. They've been in the early stages almost a prisoner in their home. Their fear level has escalated. And we have, there's a basic human need, which I think many of your psychology books would talk about, the need for interaction. What do you tell people who come to you and talk about this situation itself, that they can't see their friends? In some cases, they can't see their families. And certainly, if a friend or a family member is in the hospital, you haven't been able to see them. How do you help people deal with that?
It is a big challenge at the moment, and it has caused quite an increase in levels of distress that is exhibited in as many ways as there might be people. It kind of tends to affect different people different ways. From an evolutionary standpoint, fear, it creates fight, flight, or freeze response. It's intended to be short-lived. All the studies and over time, anybody that's worked in organizational psychology dealing with stress levels in corporate America talk about that ongoing stress at a chronic level is highly destructive to health, because it's supposed to be a short-term deal with a threat, flee it, fight it, or freeze from it in the short term, and it passes. Fight off the bear, deal with the snake, get over the falling in the river or whatever from an evolutionary standpoint in primitive times. Ongoing long-term stress in a negative toxic environment must be dealt with differently. It needs to be either eliminated or the body has to learn to actually not respond to it. You got to get over it. Studies done from people who survived concentration camps, that's where existential theory came from. What is the meaning of my existence? Why did I survive in the face of these horrible circumstances? So isolation from I'm an Adlerian psychotherapist, and Alfred Adler, who came from those times with existential theory, even though he wasn't what you classify as an existential theorist, talked about that social interest was a key indicator of mental health. And we are social creatures. Social psychologists talk about that. So yes, it's causing a tremendous amount of distress. We must find ways to both cope with it and to re-engage. And when I was thinking about us meeting today and the fact that we might be talking about some of the stress in different ways and how that affects business as well as relationships, I was thinking about the fact that we are in a new normal, whether it stays this way, whether we want it to stay this way, whether we agree with it. If you want to create a new habit, you perform that habit for 21 days. So in most states, the quarantine order was longer than 21 days. I'm not saying that I'm kept up with all of that exactly, but we're in the state of Georgia. And so that was for longer than 21 days that an order came through, quarantine order was in place. Well, all that means is, so by the end of that time period, all of us already had a new habit. Well, it wasn't necessarily a chosen habit. It was a habit that came through with trying to comply with the different situation. And so then as it went on forward, and that's why you saw ongoing issues as everyone tried to respond, adapt, or deal with in whatever different ways were being presented. So now we have new habits, and that makes, actually, in some ways, Dr. Bill, dealing with social interaction after can actually be uncomfortable, even though it was our normal before. It's what we need. It's how we've been. And some of us may go right back to it like it's fine. I've observed in some cases how people are actually giddy and they're relieved and they feel wonderful. They're almost, it's a natural high. They're so happy to be out and with people. And some actually may feel almost unsettled, like it's getting back into a new habit again, even if they've been doing it, and they'll fall right back into it. Doesn't mean that they can't do it or they won't get over that.
But a person can get to the point they might like the isolation, which they get accustomed to it. They get accustomed to, for example, as far as work goes, not having to be interrupted, not having to go to meetings, and so on. And so some people have found advantages to the isolation. Don, we've had a terrific conversation. We've been able to cover some important items. It's always terrific to have you on the Biz Communication Show. I know that there are those who want to contact you, so please give us your contact information.
Okay, thank you so much. The first thing they can do is visit us at our website at dawningphoenix.com. We have a main website, and there we have our biographies, rates, a blog called Therapist Corner, location, things like that. You can also contact us on our Google Voice line at 678-802-9591.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you very much. And since Dawn has given her contact information, I'm glad to give mine. Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. So logically, my website is B-I-Z, bizcommunicationguy.com. I invite you to go there, check my services for corporations and leaders. Give me a call. Let's talk about your communication challenges and problems and how I can assist you with them. Want to thank Dawn Echols again very much for being with us. She's a guest who I've been happy to host numerous times and will continue to, because she brings insights that help all of us. Encourage you to be with us again next week for another edition of the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy.